Okay, so we are back with video number 2. Today's video is going to be going over the midpoint formula and the distance formula, which you may remember from Unit 2 of the year. We did some review on it 2 weeks ago, but a lot of people struggled with it, so we're going to be reviewing it some more. So remember, you're going to watch this video, should be about 5 minutes long, maybe a little longer, and then go and take the quizzes. The link to the quizzes is in the description of this video. It's also posted in Google Classroom. You can email me if you can't find it. The quizzes will also be only 10 questions long. So starting with the midpoint formula, we use the midpoint formula when we are trying to find the midpoint between 2 points. So for example, on this number line here, we have one point A at 1, another point B at 3. The midpoint between A and B would be 2. We can see 2 is right in the middle of 1 and 3. So in this case, when it's a number line, it's pretty easy. You just have to find what is in between them. You can always draw out a number line to solve a problem, but a shortcut that we learned earlier in the year is that we can also add these two numbers together and then divide by 2. So to find the middle between 1 and 3, we can do A plus B divided by 2. In this case, that is 1 plus 3 divided by 2. 1 plus 3 is 4, divided by 2 is 2. So that's how you'd find the midpoint of two numbers on a number line. Okay, so now we're looking at the midpoint formula in 2 dimensions. So we've got a coordinate plane here. We've got point A at 2, 3, over 2, up 3, and B at 4, negative 1, over 4, down 1. To solve this problem, I think it would be easier if I have a better coordinate plane, so we're actually going to go inside the computer and I'm going to show you it there. Okay, so here we have the problem that I had drawn on the whiteboard. You can see we've got our 2 points A and B, and we're trying to find the midpoint between them. So we've got the midpoint formula over here. If you're planning to do the quizzes, I would definitely write down this formula, but we're going to go through and see how to use it in action. So the key with this formula is that we're finding the middle between the two x values. That's the 2 and the 4. We want to find the middle on the x-axis. So one's at 4 on the x-axis, the other's at 2 on the x-axis. We want to find the middle between them. You can already see that between 2 and 4, we have 3, but we'll go through the math just to see it. And then the same thing, the second part is the exact same thing. We find the middle between the two y values. So as you know from class, I like to label the x and the y of each one, just so we don't get them confused, and then just go through and substitute them into the equation. So x1 becomes 2, because that's the value of A. Then x2 becomes 4, because remember, we're comparing the two x's, so 2 and 4. And then we do the same with y1 and y2. In this case, it's 3. And the second one becomes negative 1. And now it's a matter of just simplifying this expression. We have 2 plus 4, that is 6. Oh, I moved it up, sorry. We've got 2 plus 4, that becomes 6. 3 plus negative 1, that becomes 2. Divide both of these by 2, and we get our final answer. The midpoint will be an x-coordinate, 3, and a y-coordinate, 1. So in this case, we have 3, positive 1. We see if we made a point right here, it would be exactly between these two. Okay, so that was the stuff on the midpoint formula. We're now going to go into the distance formula. Really important to keep track of the difference between these two. That was a big mistake when we did the mastery test on this. So the midpoint formula asks us if we've got point A and point B. The midpoint formula would say what's in between these two, what's in the middle of them. The distance formula is asking us to find how far is it to get from point A to point B. On a number line, this is pretty straightforward. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, or you can just do B minus A. And you always want to take the absolute value of it because you'd never have a negative distance. So in this case, B minus A, B is 3 minus negative 1, and that is equal to positive 4. even if you got a negative here, you would still put your answer as a positive because you should always get a positive answer for the distance. So that is just how you find the distance on a number line. Okay, so now we're going to go over the distance formula in 2 dimensions. I'm going to try and do my best to explain it here, but if this isn't clear enough, I will link another video explaining this in the description, so you can check that out as well if you need more help. So the distance formula is asking us how far is it from one point to the other. And we actually get this formula from the Pythagorean theorem. Because if you imagine 2 points on a plane, here's our point 1, 2, here's another point 4, 6. You can imagine drawing in a right triangle where the distance between them is the hypotenuse, the longest side. So we just need to find the 2 shorter sides, the 2 legs of the triangle. And this is what this formula helps us to do. So we find what's the difference between the 2 x's, x2 minus x1. Remember, the x is the first number in a set of coordinates. So x2, in this case, would be 4. If it helps, you can label those beforehand. X1 would be 1. You square that. Same thing, except with the y's this time. 6 and 2. We take the 2 y values, the second coordinate in the point. So 6 minus 2 squared. So we have 4 minus 1 squared. That ends up becoming 3 squared. We do the parentheses first. 6 minus 2 squared, that is 4 squared. Let's not forget that this whole thing is under a square root sign. So we have 3 squared, that becomes 9. Plus 4 squared, that becomes 16. Again, we've still got this all taking the square root of it. And then ultimately 9 plus 16 equals 25. Square root of that is equal to 5. So the distance between these points, 1, 2, and 4, 6, is 5 because that's the length of the hypotenuse. I would recommend writing this formula down, possibly watching another video on it. Remember to email me if you have questions. There's a 10-question quizzes on the distance formula and the midpoint formula in the description. I hope you all are doing well. Definitely reach out if you have questions. I'm going to have another Zoom session on Thursday, tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So yeah, let me know if you need help. Hopefully you all are feeling good about this, and I hope you're all doing okay. Have a good one. Bye. Okay, I'm back for a couple quick seconds because I realized the end of the video, the bottom of the math got cut off, and I forgot to say woohoo. So you've got 9 plus 16, and then finally you add those together, 25. Square root of 25, what times what equals 25? That is 5. Woohoo, that's the answer. This is just so you can see all the math in case you couldn't see it. Hope that is helpful.